Republican presidential candidates are coming to Michigan days after their second debate. MiWeek starts right now.
Detroit Public TV is supported by Business Leaders for Michigan, announcing open registration for the Michigan CEO Summit, November 12th at the Westin Book Cadillac, Detroit. Keynote speaker is Tom Kelly, leader of a global design firm helping organizations innovate and grow. Motivational speakers, networking opportunities, and creative inspiration. That's the Business Leaders for Michigan CEO Summit, November 12th at the Westin Book Cadillac. Info at businessleadersformichigan.com/events. Funding is also provided by Delta.
Welcome to MiWeek. We are so happy to have you with us. I'm Christy McDonald. A lot of big headlines this week. The UAW reaches a tentative deal with Fiat Chrysler. Congress closing in on the Iran deal. The Lions lost, but the biggest headlines were reserved for the second Republican debate. Did you watch? Sure you did. If you're a Republican, you're going to have to pick one of these candidates for president. If you are not a Republican, you still watched because you need to know what the other side is talking about. Plus, let's face it, there's that whole Trump factor. The interesting part is that 6 of these candidates are now heading to Michigan this weekend for the Mackinac Republican Leadership Conference. Michigan Republicans gather like this every 2 years, and the candidates who will be there, you see there on the screen, Jeb Bush, Scott Walker, Ted Cruz, John Kasich, Carly Fiorina, and Rand Paul. So it got us to thinking first about the fallout from the debate last night, how these candidates are shaping the issues in the race, and the connection to Michigan. What kind of Republican Party strength is here? Where's the money? And who will emerge as the favorite among Republicans in the state? So let's get to it with our MiWeek contributors, Nolan Finley of the Detroit News and Stephen Henderson of the Detroit Free Press. Guys, there's nothing better than I like than to watch a Republican debate and to come here on MiWeek and to sit and enjoy talking about it with you guys. A couple thoughts that I had up front
in August of the year before. I'm going to keep saying
well, we're in September now. We are absolutely, we're actually in September now.
It's almost October, for goodness sakes.
We're in it. We're in it. We are 6 months away from our primary here in Michigan, so it's time to get
we're 3 months away from the first primaries,
right?
So this thing's getting serious.
4 months.
So this is all right,
October,
math genius.
November,
we'll figure it
December.
out.
September. We're in it's September.
Is it really going to be that kind of show today?
It's not
What's the date today?
Am I going to have to turn this car around? Hey, all right, kids in the back. All right, so let's get started.
The primaries aren't on the 1st.
Yeah, get one of these things.
By the way,
says, right,
I'm feeling like Jake Tapper right now, who is kind of like, hey, does anyone want to comment on this? All right, let's talk really quick about the format of this debate. I think what last night's debate showed us was 11 people on a stage is just too many. Yes. This is a format that does not work in any way, shape, or form.
Remember that mayoral debate?
The mayoral debate was like that.
Good God.
The governor's, the first governor's debate on Mackinac in 2010
was how many people?
It was 7 or 8, right?
Yeah. It was still not enough. So
that mayoral debate we did was like 16.
Yeah, no, and we had to divide it over days, right?
So so we can all agree that 11 people on stage is ridiculous, yes. And we can all agree, I believe, that 3 hours is way too long. I watched it because I enjoy watching this, and it's also part of my job. I don't think that you're going to get the general public to hang in there for 3. What is the comment you're going to make? Is it really, I mean, what is happening here today?
Let's go. What's your question?
All right, well, my question is, what did you get out of the debate?
Yeah, you don't get much out of these debates, except for I would say it was a little more substantive than the first debate. You've now had candidates putting out position papers, putting out pretty good policy positions on a number of issues. It wasn't so bombastic. I think, Trump, it was still all about Trump, but not as much as it was the first time around.
Yeah, I mean, I think I should say I was giving a speech last night when the debate started, and by the time I got home, we were, I don't know, 2.5 hours into it. So I had to catch up on Twitter and online and see stuff. If you were looking at it that way and going back and seeing what people were talking about, I felt like there was a lot less Donald Trump out there this time than there was the first time. The first time, that was all you saw people talking about.
But I would still have to say, though, A third of the questions, though, started off with talking about positions and talking about Trump's position. So the question would be given to the candidate and said, Donald Trump believes this about immigration. Donald Trump believes this about Planned Parenthood. So, so my argument to that is it was still very Trump-centric, and he still got the most talk time out of all of the candidates.
But he's the front runner, and I think that's a typical debate tactic, is you take after the person who you think is in the lead. So that didn't bother. But what I did notice was that other people's ideas, were getting out, at least on social media, in a way that I hadn't seen them before, and that even includes people like Rand Paul, who I thought hit a real chord when he started talking about mass incarceration, overcriminalization, and things like that. I mean, those are issues that we have not had a substantive debate about in presidential politics in a long time. And last night they seemed to be open to that.
Well, if they couldn't get to some of those domestic issues in 3 hours, then when were you ever going to get to them? Who stood out for you, Nolan, last night?
You know, it's hard for anybody to really stand out. I mean, there's a couple questions I had. You know, again, it was all about Trump this, Trump that. But over the last couple of weeks, you've had a very strong surge by Ben Carson, and yet he still can't seem to get any respect on that debate stage. The people asking the questions still don't seem to notice that he's there. I don't really understand the Carson phenomena, but right now he's on Trump's heels, and we were waiting for somebody to rise to challenge Trump. I didn't expect it to be Ben Carson, but that's who it is today, and I would have thought that position would have gotten him more attention, more respect last night. It didn't seem to. I think you had a couple candidates present themselves last night as, you know, mature leaders, people who aren't just going to tell the voters what they want to hear. I'll go specifically on the Iran deal. You know, you had all these people saying, "I'll repeal it first thing I'll do.
Rip it up
I'll
the first
tear
day I
it
get into
up."
office.
Well, that's not going to happen. And you had Jeb Bush, John Kasich saying, "You're not going to rip up an international agreement. We've got, you know, it's a bad deal, but we've got to try to figure out how to make this bad deal work because it's a done deal." And, you know, America may not want to hear that, voters may not want to hear it, but it's the truth. And I think if folks like that, candidates like that, start telling voters the truth, not pandering, it'll set them apart from the Trump and Cruzes and Walkers and whomever else out there who don't seem to have a clue about reality.
I do think it was very hard, though, for a lot of the candidates to break through, again, because of the format. I'll continue to rail on that and the number of people who are on stage. I also felt like there would be stretches that you didn't hear from certain candidates for maybe 15, 18 minutes. So then when someone had an opportunity to say something, they tried to be as forceful as possible and tried to get in a couple of random talking points that didn't even have anything to do with the original question. And I think that can be a little problematic. Who stood out to you? I know you did play a little bit of catch up.
Well, I mean, I think I did think that Rand Paul did better than I expected him to do, and again set himself apart by talking about some issues that may appeal to voters because they are different than what everyone else is talking about. I actually thought Ben Carson did a good job. I mean, if
when
he
had
is
a chance to answer
right,
a question.
if he is selling what you are buying, I think he's a really good articulator of those positions, and I thought he had a good debate. I didn't think Jeb Bush did as well as he could. I think he's still struggling to find that footing that's gonna catapult him ahead of everybody else. And I think it's strange to watch because you're sort of looking at it and thinking, well, that's the guy who's ultimately going to get the nomination.
Too prepared.
He or
trying too hard, I think.
Marco Rubio, I suppose. Really, you're down to 2 or 3 people who are, I think, realistic nominees, and they don't seem to be able to sort of separate themselves from the herd, and it's not clear why that's still true.
Oh, Carly Fiorina, who didn't make the main stage last time, but impressed in the sort of junior varsity event, continues to give an impressive performance. Her exchange with Trump on leadership, she was unrattled by it. She was forceful. I mean, I think that was a point at which she made him look a little foolish. She continues, I think, to impress voters. I would think if there's a next surge, it'll be by her, because voters clearly aren't yet interested in inside candidates, establishment candidates, people who've held office. They're still looking for, the outsider, if you will, and you know. At some
and
point,
at this point, you have to wonder to what end is that still going on, because those people are not going to get the nomination likely.
I think stranger things have happened. Let me bring in something that you said though. You said Ben Carson was good if you're buying what he's selling, and so I want to take that thought and step back, maybe just a little bit larger in terms of are you buying what the Republicans are selling, and are a lot of these candidates too narrow in their focus? Are we kind of drawing a line between candidates who think that they should just rally the base, Nolan, in terms of the Republicans that are already there, or do we have now candidates among the Republican presidential hopefuls that are saying that we need to expand this party and we need to bring in others?
These debates and this point of the campaign has nothing to do with the general election. Very little. They're speaking to the base. They've got to get nominated, and right now it's been very hard for anybody who folks are familiar with or have been familiar with from the political perspective to excite the base. The base seems to be excited by people who tell them, we're going to take this country back, and with absolutely no substance to how that might be, how they might be going to do that. And I think both Carson and Trump are, that's their message. We're going to take this country back. We're going to change this country. Well, okay, we probably need to, but how? And you're not hearing a whole lot of that from either of those candidates.
What do you think in terms of what the Republican?
I mean, this is that constant sort of weird white majority narrative that we got to take the country back from whom? It's your country, you run it, right? I do think we're hearing the same things that we always hear from Republicans at this time, and if you're a Republican, this is great. If you're not, I think it's a hard sell. Let's cut taxes again. Let's cut taxes at the upper end. There was an analysis of Jeb Bush's tax plans that talked about how much money it would take out of the Treasury and how much it would give to people who pay the marginal rate, people who get capital gains. Hold on, corporations who have jobs overseas. These are the kinds of things that they're still stuck on as the way to move the economy ahead. And I think that's going to be a hard sell in the general election with a population that is seeing corporate profits go up at record levels over the last 8 years, and their wages stay about the same.
Well, certainly not over the last 8 years. So many corporations went bankrupt during the '89. But when you look at the
stimulus,
you mentioned
they are at record levels. Corporate profits are at record levels.
You look at the Jeb Bush analysis of Jeb Bush tax plan by the Washington Post assumed no growth out of that plan, which is ridiculous, given that it was a plan designed
so it's $1 trillion instead of $3 trillion that comes out of the Treasury.
If he gets growth at 3 to 4% a year, which is what this is designed to do, and the things he's proposing have always created growth, the Treasury will actually grow. The revenues will actually grow, and that's the point of it. You don't grow an economy by taxing it.
All right, I want to take this now. I want to walk this
Ronald
a little
Reagan
further.
Did, Bill Clinton did, but
hang
somehow
on.
we can't.
Hang on. All
Ronald
right.
Reagan cut taxes.
Hang on.
As did Bill
Hey,
Clinton.
I am sitting here, and I'm telling you both to hang on for 1 second, because now I want to move this conversation forward. I want to move this conversation forward. Both of you make stuff up, and I'm going to say that right now. I'm going to move this conversation forward to what's going to happen now in Michigan. Tomorrow, you are going up north for the Republican Leadership Conference up on Mackinac. 6 of these candidates are going to be up there. Nolan, when you walk into the Grand Hotel, is it like Norman Cheers, and do they say Nolan when you come up to the Republican Leadership Conference?
Yeah, flowers start flying.
But so give us a sense of the impact of these 6 candidates who are going to be up there.
Well, a year ago, if you told me we were going to go up there and Bush and Rubio, or not Rubio, but Bush and Cruz and Walker and Kasich were going to be on the island, I'd say, well, that's a pretty heavyweight affair. But no Trump, no Carson. Carly Fiorina is going to be there, but it seems like without Donald Trump, nothing else matters. He's going to be in Iowa, he's going to be South Carolina. That's where the cameras are going to be. And so what should be a pretty heavyweight event, has somehow a deflated feel to it.
Give us some perspective, Stephen, of why this is a big deal for Michigan and why Michigan Republicans still continue to hold clout like this to bring these big names up here.
Well, I mean, this is still an important state in the primary process, even though we vote later than Iowa and New Hampshire. All of the candidates eventually will come here and try to campaign. The ones who are still around, I guess, by March, what is it, March 8th or whatever the primary is. You know, this is not a place that you can just sort of kiss off, either in the primary races or in the general. I mean, it's a big state. It's an industrial state. It's more of a bellwether. The population here is more representative of other states in the union where they need to get votes. Ohio, Indiana, Wisconsin, Minnesota. We will get our turn. I just think now, because of this weird insurgency campaign of Trump's that has moved things really far outside the mainstream, we seem less relevant now than we would normally be at this point.
You know, Michigan's got a lot of delegates. I mean, so it's always going to get paid attention to by both parties. But also this year, its positioning its position is rather crucial. It's March 8th. You know, we had been trying the last couple times to move into February, but up until March 8th, delegates will be awarded proportionally. So if you get 40% of the vote, you get 40% of delegates. Michigan will be the last primary with a proportional award of the delegates. After that, it's winner take all, and it'd be really hard for some of these lesser candidates to hang on, knowing unless they feel there's a state out there they could take, you know, the whole state. So I think Michigan's going to get a lot of focus as these folks try to be the candidate who walks out of here with a pocket full of delegates.
So you talk about the delegates. What about the money? What kind of money is here for a Republican candidate?
You know, and that's a curious thing. The money, there's a lot of Republican money here, and they contributed. They were huge contributors to the Romney campaign, even though, you know, the state doesn't go for Republican presidential candidate in the last 20 years or so. I mean, Jeb Bush has raised a lot of money here, and the Bushes have always raised a lot of money in Michigan, but they've never done well in the primaries here. The father in 1988, locked in this bitter battle with Pat Robertson that split the convention. George W. lost to John McCain here, and so that the money doesn't necessarily translate to votes.
Yeah, I mean, the voters here in primaries tend to be a pretty extreme iteration of whatever party it is, and that's true on the Democratic side too. We've had some weird winners of the Michigan primary, even though the major candidates or the mainstream candidates raise more money.
All right, well, so Nolan, so give us a sense of what you're going to be looking for when you go up there on Friday. What are I guess the storylines you'll be looking for?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to hear some of these candidates talk outside of the shadow of Trump, you know, where they can not be goaded into sort of this exchange of insults and inane comments. I mean, it'll be good to see them get attention on their own and be able to you know, talk about their own ideas and not answer every question being about, well, what do you think about what Trump said? So you know, that'll be a little refreshing.
What do you think is going to come out of this?
Normally, I would be going up with Nolan, and we would be behaving very well over the weekend while we
I mean, based on the behavior on this show, actually, for the first 15 minutes, I'm not quite sure that you would be behaving well if we were together.
I'm actually not going this year. I'm sending someone else from my staff. I mean, I think you want to see whether these more mainstream candidates like Jeb Bush can get people excited at something like this in Michigan. How can he get these people to pay more attention to him than they seem to at these debates and in the polls? I assume that's why he's going, right? That he figures eventually the attention turns to him, and he's gotta be ready.
Last 15 seconds. Last word on this, Nolan.
I'm not sure that's an eventuality. I mean, we're only 3 months away from the primary. This field has to start winnowing in a major way for anybody to rise up and challenge Trump, because he doesn't seem to be losing that 25 to 30% support.
Well, and let's see when campaigns start putting their ads on the air as well, and see where that goes from there. All right, so I expect full reports from Mackinac coming up next week. Thanks, guys, so much. And finally tonight, a look at what people in Michigan really want to spend when it comes to higher education and how we think of being successful in this state. It's a new report from the Center for Michigan. Its staff spent a year traveling the state, holding community conversations and conducting surveys in order to find out what our priorities should be. The CEO for the Center for Michigan, John Bebow, fills us in. All right, John, your report is called Getting to Work, the Public's Agenda for Improving Career Navigation, College Affordability, and Upward Mobility in Michigan. This is not the first time the Center for Michigan has gone out on the citizens' agenda and asking people what they really think and what they like to see happening in Michigan. So why did you choose this particular subject matter?
Actually, the public helped us choose it, Christy. Every time we do a campaign, we then go back out and say, what should we talk about next? And we've steadily moved up the chain in education from K-12 into now after high school and into college. It's what people wanted to talk about. And when we do these campaigns, we talk to citizens as if they are customers. And they are indeed customers of the education system. And in this case, we were very interested and they were very interested in talking about the navigation system. Beyond classes in high school, what am I going to do with my life? How do I figure that out? And they were also very interested in talking about college costs and the return on investment of college.
All right, so what did the public have to say about post-high school and talking about college?
If I had to boil it down to one word, I would say conundrum.
Conundrum.
Conundrum. Families realize that the path to success today has got to include some kind of formal training, be it vocational training, trades training, or college after high school. But the costs of college have grown so quickly, and the debt loads have grown so quickly on Michigan families. They're beginning to question the return on investment, even though they know they've got to do it.
So they're thinking it's not even worth it, even if they can cobble together the money or take out the loans, which are extravagant these days as well.
They are questioning, they are asking the question about return on investment, I think, much more than in the past. In previous generations, you went to college and things were going to work out, and I think for a lot of us lucky enough to have come before this generation, they did. But it's tougher now. It's tougher to get a job when you're done, and it's tougher to navigate this complex opportunity landscape of what you're going to do with yourself. And this campaign really focused on both those things, career navigation and college choice navigation at the high school level. And then the costs of college once you get there.
Let's talk about the cost of college and how much it has gone up significantly for public universities here in the state of Michigan, because the funding commitment from the government has gone down lower and people are now paying more. Give me some numbers on that.
Yeah, well, undergraduate tuition at the 15 public Michigan universities has risen 86% after inflation between 2001 and 2014. That's after inflation. At the same time, families' ability to pay has decreased significantly. Inflation-adjusted household income, what people are taking home, has dropped by about a quarter over that time frame. So you see very quickly rising tuition and a slowed ability of people to be able to pay. As a result, student loans on the 15 public campuses have skyrocketed altogether from about $800 million at the turn of the century to $2 billion today. And that's how families are making it up. And we're struggling with college completion rates as a result. People are taking longer to get through school, or they're not getting through school. And there are several causes for this. The state investment in higher ed has dropped significantly. The bean counters in our legislature have run the numbers, and their conclusion is that 60% of those tuition increases over this time frame can be attributed to the drop in state investment in higher ed.
So you can get mad at the lawmakers on that regard, but are people also maybe talking to the colleges and universities saying maybe we need to hold them a little bit more accountable for the cost?
When we ask the customers what to do about this, and we ask in numerous different ways. We held 150 community meetings. We did numerous large statewide polls, and we also did targeted online surveys to college students and parents, the customers. And they had very strong feelings toward two kinds of solutions. And some of the highest percentage numbers we've ever seen. We've been doing this work for almost a decade. And on these two solutions, they could not have been stronger. The first was they want deeper state investment in our public university system as a way of helping to keep it affordable. But they also want universities to redouble their efforts to be efficient. They feel there's need for that kinds of efficiency on campus. That's a difficult prospect in Michigan. The universities are constitutionally autonomous. The legislature and the governor have limited control. That's a completely different debate that I'm not concerned with here. But as we've looked around the country at some other states, in Texas, for example, there was a task force put together to look at the efficiency on university campuses, and the university presidents themselves came back almost 2 years later and said, hey, we've taken your recommendations and we've saved $2 billion. Bridge Magazine this week, our publication, wrote about efforts at Purdue University, just south of the border, where the new president, former Governor Mitch Daniels, has frozen tuition, he's frozen room and board as a way of getting at some of these customer concerns.
And you can see my entire interview with John plus coverage in the Center's online publication, Bridge Magazine, on our website at MiWeek.org. Also, a quick program note for you. We hope to see many of you on Friday night at the Fillmore for our special event, Detroit Performs Live at 8 p.m. Detroit artists Ben Sharkey, Betty Lavette, Jessica Hernandez, many more will take the stage. Stephen and I will be there, so make sure you tune into Detroit Public TV or be part of the show. So just go to dptv.org for more information. And that is going to do it for us. We will see you next week for My Week. Until then, find us on Facebook and on Twitter. I'm Christy McDonald. Have a great night. We'll see you next time.
Detroit Public TV is supported by Business Leaders for Michigan, announcing open registration for the Michigan CEO Summit, November 12th at the Westin Book Cadillac Detroit. Topics include trends that could affect your bottom line and how well Michigan is doing in attracting and growing good-paying jobs. A great lineup of speakers, networking opportunities, and creative inspiration. That's the Business Leaders for Michigan CEO Summit, November 12th at the Westin Book Cadillac. Info at businessleadersformichigan.com/events. Funding is also provided by Delta.